And I only truly started to understand this when I was a parent. Right? So I've got 3 daughters right now. And in loving my child, right, you recognize how much I'm giving to my child, right, to have her begin to grow. Right? Primarily itself, right, to give her the right to live. Because this is what is deserved of her. You deserve to live. You deserve to have the best opportunities possible, and I will give you what you deserve. But there's the expectation that comes back. Because as you are given what you deserve, you should be responsible for this right that you have been given. Correct? When a parent itself, right, is more or less saying, why is it you don't be responsible for your life? Well, it comes out as study la sitina. That's what it sounds like. But actually really what it is that if you have been given a right, you should be following up with the responsibility. Right? And you find yourself at that, and I don't mean conceptually, but it's profoundly true, that honestly it's not any one given person, right, who tries to cut themselves or commit suicide, even for myself. Right? I am dishonoring, right, basically the privilege that I have been given. And I have been given a life. And that life itself, I've got a responsibility to live that life, right, to the best of my ability. I've never ever imagined a day, right, where my parents would come home and they'll tell me, I'm so proud of you, son. Right? But over the past 3 years, I can see it in their eyes now. When I'm together with them, they are proud of me. But not because I bring glory to them, but because I'm living my life responsibly. They see that for once in my life, I'm living my life responsibly. So even though it's not my parents, right, I'm not necessarily trained academics, whatever the case, as a human instinct, they understand rights and responsibilities. People who complain in life are very conscious of their rights, but they're not conscious of their responsibilities. I deserve better service, food, whatever the case of it. They're conscious of their rights. Right? But the reason why they don't do anything about it is not because they're apathetic. It's because they don't know that this right also comes with responsibility. It does. So my question is, who are you, right, that has you not do these things? You see, I see myself, right, as a man. I see myself as a Christian. I see myself as a citizen of Singapore. I can tell yourself, I have no parts about me that will pause and say, I love Singapore, right, to the depths of my soul. I love this country deeply. I love it because of all the privilege that it has given me. And because I've been given privilege, I also have a responsibility to it. I love it. That's specifically. I love my mother because of what she's given me. And because she's been given this, I have a responsibility to take care of her. It's a natural progression. So think about this over here. So people who don't give up, and this is why I will be doing the World Square. As school of thought. How do I make you more conscious of your responsibilities? This clearly. So the sadness part over here is that we think that ground-up initiatives are rare, that a few exceptional individuals are doing this. To me, it's complete nonsense. Everybody should be doing this. The fact we're sitting down here itself, like in one Marina Boulevard in this aircon room, you've been given privilege. You have an exceptional life right in front of you. But the question is, what are your responsibilities? Nothing comes for free, guys. And our responsibilities is, therefore, I'm very, very busy. I have a job, I have nothing to do. You're all talking about your rights. That's what you're talking about. So I think that's one. Second. So the guess was that people don't do anything because they're apathetic. Right? But what exactly is apathy? Apathy is a protection against disappointment. It's a defense. It's a protection against disappointment. We began to work over here that apathy was a protection against disappointment. It's a protection. The funny thing about this over here is that if we are now in this room and we, let's say, collectively do not follow our responsibilities, I can guarantee you, you're going to have a very disappointing society. Which is what we're seeing in Singapore. Entitled population, very little responsibility. Is there? And the natural response, right, to disappointment is apathy. And it creates this horrible cycle. Apathetic, don't engage, cause more disappointment. More disappointment, more apathy. More apathy, right, cause more disappointment. Boom, boom, boom. And if we don't interrupt this conversation soon, right, then the country that I love, I'm sure that all of you love, is going to start to destabilize. But fear is a precondition to courage. It's a precondition. If you don't have courage, you have to have fear first before you can have courage. It's a precondition. So the good news is that you're one step in front of courage. So the question you ask here is, well, what gives me the courage? What gives me these things over here? The only things that I know are real right now is basically what are your responsibilities and who are you? What are your responsibilities and who are you? What are your responsibilities and who are you? So if you say, for example, that there's a deeper part of you that senses there's something wrong in the world, right? I can tell you over here that in this room, everyone senses it also. Right? But the fact itself is that you're asking about it. And they have yet to come to this place. Or this, I don't know, whether you are or not. You're starting to ask about it. And if I could help you with this, right, I might be standing on maybe a few steps ahead, and I go, come here, team. And I don't mean this itself in any one given way that is judging. But I have chosen to prioritize. But if I to sum it down to one key thing over here, I think I'm blessed with a very, very good team. Really good team. Yeah, I'm blessed with a really good team as far as my work is concerned, and a really good team as far as my wife is concerned. Yeah, and my wife supports me immensely. Like I said, and no matter how much she's tired, right, and I watch her, so like there's some really significant sacrifice on her own time, right, to make sure itself I'm always in the best condition when I move up, right, or go out my day. So I don't manage my time alone, right. If it really is about priority of time, then the people itself, right, who get in lower priority, right, they have a strong generosity of spirit, right, which they go do what you need to do, right, and do it. So there's a relative part of my life right now where I feel torn. Yeah. And I know the luxury that not everyone has, but I have a lot of blessing in that territory. I don't feel torn. But yes, I do prioritize my children very highly. Yeah. So I try and spend as much time as possible. It started off first as a repeat student program. Okay. I had repeated my O-levels as well as my A-levels. Right. The very, very first time I took my O-levels, and this is the first wake-up call, my mom saw me never ever studying. Always out playing basketball and always out playing computer games, right? And she said, are you sure you know what you're doing? I said, yeah, don't worry about it. 6 points, I'll give it to you. That was the... So results finally came out, I got 29 points, right? And I couldn't make it to junior college, and I had repeated my O-levels, and that same cycle happened in A-levels, so I repeated twice. So, I mean, you can imagine in the whole Singapore system, right? The whole idea is that if you graduate 2 years later, plus army, whatever the case, you're 4 years older than actually the girls, right? And that, again, it runs into that cycle. Oh my God, you just can't do anything right. You're off track, right? So it began as a repeat student program with a lot of empathy for people who were falling through the cracks, right? And it began as, if you're, I tell you this loser moment, right? I still remember this. This is October O-level year, first time repeating, right? Sitting down there, and all my friends had gone to junior college, right? And I was sitting over there, and I remember it's both real and funny at the same time. I was doing my work, my chemistry, right? And I genuinely at the point in time felt I had no friends. Right? And my only friend at the point in time was the radio station Class 95. In Class 95, this DJ would go, whoever's out there, right, buck up, you're not alone. And I was smiling, they're talking to me. And I was crying, I love you, Class 95. They were supporting me throughout the entire year. Such a loser. I was sitting out there, listening to this DJ and going through this, and that moment is one of those moments where later on, when my group older, I said, I will never have another young person go through this alone. Right? If I know that you're now going through this, right, I will support you and I'll help you. I will find the support, I will find basically, right, if you can't afford things, then let's pay this for you. So School of Thought began with that intention. But what's interesting is that it's not what it is now. Because there was another thread that was growing, because I think somewhere around by the age of 13, I figured that values are absolutely important. Values, absolutely important. And I had grown up with a lot of knowledge of values, but no embodiment of values, right? And it became important to me to say, so where in our school system is it genuinely teaching values? Right? And we saw the academic curriculum, we saw basically how we were allocating time. It was very clear itself that although we talked a lot about values, we really didn't dedicate the time to values. Right? So the question was, could we innovate that? Could we find a way in which we can genuinely teach, right, a subject, but really impart the kind of values that we need to bring into the part, or impart the contextualization necessary, right, to do this? And I think that's what really informed the School of Thought. Currently, I think for some people, and one or two staff here, what School of Thought is a civic education program. Okay, it's a civic education program. But when we first designed it, right, let's say I go to the market and I open up a civic education program. Okay, no student in the right mind will sign up for it. Nobody's going to pay $200 a month for a civic education program. So what I do is I disguise that as tuition. I disguise it as English tuition and general paper tuition. So what happens is that students come over and they sign up for English tuition, right? But English, because it's a skill and there's no content, I can plug any content I want into the subject there. So the students sign up for the program, go through basically this English program that's there, and in the English, because I meet you every single week for 2 hours, I have a capacity itself right, to talk through all the civic learning, right? What are your roles? What are your responsibilities? What is your identity? Right, this way. And somewhere into 6 months over here, students can sit up and think, wow, English is very meaningful. Huh? I think English is meaningful. And when they start loving the subject and they find value and meaning in English, right, ironically they start doing well. So on a market level, School of Thought actually is doing pretty well as a tuition center. Right? It's getting this role that says, oh wow, you go there, you sure get grades. Right? But actually really what's happening is that we're giving meaning to this learning, right? Which is why they're doing well. I don't think we have magical teachers. We have 5 enterprises currently. Of the 5 enterprises, I would say the only ones that are really sustainable that actually work are the first 3 that we set up. Okay? School of Thought, Food for Thought, and Think Tank Publishing. Okay? So one is a tuition school, right? One is a restaurant, institute restaurants, and one is basically a publishing house, or it begins publishing house. So I give 2 principles. The first principle is that if a social enterprise is going to start, they have to capitalize on market habits. They have to capitalize on market habits. So the market habit that currently works already in Singapore is already a market habit for tuition. Right, so now the question is, how do I innovate tuition to create a social purpose? Okay? You don't try to create a market habit. Right? Which means over there, if I go out and I start, I don't know, selling big baby carriers that warm babies. The whole question is there a market habit of people buying them in the first place? Right? You find that a lot of social enterprises, the entrepreneurs begin with a social need and then start looking for the market habit. Whereas what we do is how we look for the market habit and we try to innovate it for social purposes. And that has actually had us hit three in a row. Right? So we know that people wake up, they study. People wake up, they read. People wake up, they eat. Right? And because of this, it's worked. My other 2 social enterprises, right? One is basically in terms of experience design. Okay? And the last is in terms of social innovation consultancy. Right? These 2 are struggling. Right? Because no one wakes up and go, what kind of new experience trail can I go and walk on today? No one wakes up and goes, what kind of social innovation consultancy can I begin to search for? And these become more complex businesses. So honestly, if I didn't have the first 3 to sustain these 2, I don't think this group could have possibly survived. And because I focused on these 3 first, right, these 3 became eventually sustainable. So these ones became the cash cow for this one. So SOT, School of Thought, is a huge cash cow. Right? Every single time other companies are languishing or dying off over here, right? The guardian angel called School of Thought will come over and money. Get that little way. So we don't cross-fund, but we do cross-lend. Because each of the businesses have its own shareholders, so they lend the money, but they lend it below, let's see, all the bank interest rates that's there. So it forms a little ecosystem that we have for ourselves. So that's the first thing. Second, in terms of market habits, right? What I have generally learned or taught is this. If you're complaining, if you go out in the world, right, and you find a certain complaint, right, oh, this sucks. You've also found a market niche. Every complaint is a market niche. Every time you go out, you say, I'm dissatisfied with that, And if you hear other people also dissatisfied, that's a market need, right? Most people, or the non-entrepreneurs, don't see that. They complain and they continue complaining, right? Entrepreneurs complain and go, they go, is that an opportunity that's there, right? So what I found in life here is that I tend to go on in life with a lens where, and I say this genuinely, there's a very strong need to serve, right? So each time itself, I hear a complaint, I immediately look at it as opportunity, right? And that has allowed basically, I think, business development to scale very, very well. So I tend to be ahead of the curve, right? Because I tend to listen to the complaints, not the good news.